All right, Chris, our producer, thanks for putting this together like always. Robbie, thanks for being on board. We've got a gentleman I've known for some time. I think 2004 or 5, Raj, is when I first met you at a YPO event. Met your brother David a bunch of times, and a couple of my good friends are good friends with you, and speak unbelievably highly of you. I haven't had the pleasure to get enough time with you, but maybe in the future we will. I like to say we're blessed to have you on our show because our goal is to tell stories from rags to riches, stories that shape our industries, and stories that of businesses that become top tier in their industry, to understand how they did it. And if we can understand how they did it, maybe we can apply some of the values, some of the strategy, right, some of the differentiation to our own businesses. And that's kind of the goal, is to inspire other people, young and old, to get out there and go after it and use our stories as some of their in some of their own stories, right? So that's what we're doing, and blessed to have you today, Raj. Thanks for being here.
Terrific. It's great to be here and great to see you again.
And all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to hammer you. We're going to pepper you with questions, Rob.
Okay.
Robbie and I are going to pepper you with questions, and Raj, we just expect you to kind of just go after them, right? Any way you want to. We usually start with your story, right? How'd you grow up, and what shaped you as a business leader, entrepreneur? Where'd you get your mindset to lead? Because I've watched you lead from a business that was kind of local and regional to now a global business. It's something that's not possible. People don't think it's possible to do in many of their industries. And I believe, like you believe, the sky's the limit if you have the vision and the execution and the team that you can put behind you. So if you could maybe start from the beginning, okay, where did this mind of Raj start, family-wise and all that, and then we could start with the business and how that came about as well.
Sure. Well, a little family history. My parents came to this country from India in the 1950s. And they settled in the Chicago area. My late father was an engineer, got an engineering degree in India, went to graduate school at the U of I, and ended up working at the architectural engineering firm of Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, coming right out of the U of I. And so that's how we ended up in Chicago. And so I was born and raised here. We started out in the south suburbs, out in Park Forest, Flossmoor, and I ended up moving downtown as a single man, up north as a married man, up to Deerfield, raising 3 kids, and now I'm back downtown as a single man again. But and so that's my parents, obviously very influential in my life. They came here with less than $100 in their pocket, and just the American dream, working hard. They had some mentors along the way. They would talk about, they worked hard, but so did a lot of other people. But what they got in America, they couldn't even get in India, and that was the support of people here in this country who just looked after them, and so that was huge. And then, my dad also, for his career, always said there was a lot of luck involved. And so again, there was a lot of people in India who were very talented, just like him. He decided to go right, they went left, and he ended up having just a fabulous life in this country. And so that's also one of the values that has stuck with me, that not to get too full of myself, that we're trying to do a lot of things right. We work hard, we play to win and all that kind of stuff, but also realize that luck plays a good part in all of our success, in my view.
Sure, and I really believe, the harder you work, the more lucky you are, right? And
that's true.
And it's kind of like luck comes. I mean, you work through problems and call them challenges instead of problems, right? Don't get defeated by that short-term loss, right? Get through it, learn from it, and you will get lucky, right? Compared to feeling defeated, and boy, I don't want to ever feel that defeat again, and never going back to it, right? So I
I failed many times.
Yeah, how about that?
Just got to keep getting back up.
Well, talk about that. Talk about, you know, failing and learning from the failures, right? And how that's been a part of your life as well, and your father's probably.
Sure. You know, and so for me, our company's 53 years old, and my dad started it back in 1967. I ended up attending Claremont McKenna College out on the West Coast and Washington University in St. Louis, getting this management engineering degree and also mechanical engineering. So joined Dad right out of college. Been there 36 years now. Had different roles in the company. Now I'm chairman, and just, you know, some of the things I've learned along the way is that one of the big changes is, or big things, is that business is continually changing. And so what I saw just from observing, you know, from not being in a management position, but seeing other companies, is they seem to follow this arc, you know, where they're on the upswing, they sort of peak, and then they kind of go down, and many of those don't even exist today. And so why is that? And it's because they fail to innovate, and they fail to adapt to what's changing. And that's happened since the beginning of time. And so that's one of the lessons learned for me, is that you have to keep trying. And if it doesn't work, you know, we've all heard this: fail fast and learn from your mistakes, get up and try the next best thing. One of the influential books I read is a much younger man, was by the guys from Intel, Andrew Grove. The title, I love the title. It was "Only the Paranoid Survive." And so, you know, he talked.
I like it.
Yeah, only the paranoid survive. So there's always something we're about. Always, you know, should look inward and outward at our business to see what's next, but don't be afraid to innovate. And so when I look at my mistakes, of course I've made mistakes as we've transformed our business, but maybe the biggest mistake I made when I took over from my father was just trying not to mess it up, and rather than trying to take it to the next level. And so I took over running the day-to-day back around 1997, and it was the go-go 90s, and everything was great. And, you know, we designed mechanical and electrical systems for buildings, the infrastructure for buildings, great time for real estate. Everything we did worked, you know, and then boom, 9/11 hits, we go into a recession. And all of a sudden, it's my first time when I'm in charge where, you know, you got to start making some decisions. And so what happened was I was way too conservative about looking at this as an opportunity as business goes down, because I'm in a service business. And so, you know, the raw material for our business is brain power. And so what I did was I was way too conservative in the sense of waiting till the recovery was well underway before I started to try to hire people again. And by that time, all the good people are already spoken for. And so, so it was a lesson learned. And there was other things too that went with that, is always look forward, look for that opportunity. And so when the financial crisis hit in 2008, that was even worse. I mean, that, you know, we remember how dreadful that was. But looking back on that lesson learned from 2001, we were very aggressive with hiring people. And so we've always stayed financially stable. We operate with no long-term debt. And so we had the firepower to go out and get people in a down market. And it really was one of the best things we've done, because we were able to equip ourselves, because we were also transforming our business where we design more complex buildings now, like data centers. And so they're very hard to find in an up market, but in 2008, it was really helpful for us. So that's one example of learning from failure and turning it into a positive the next time around.
Now, can you give us a visual of you know, your dad starting the business? What gave him the courage to go out on his own and start a business when he had a great job with Skidmore? That was a big outfit. I'm sure he had a great job there. Security and all the things you think about in America, right? And what gave him the vision of, gosh, you know what, I want to do it on my own. I want to build my own business? Or what was the opportunity that took him there? And then all the way through when you got involved in the business, about how big it had grown, and then where you were in 2008, and then where you are today.
Okay, rapid fire. You're not kidding with these rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Dad started it. It's Skidmore. Skidmore's a great company. We still work with them today. He ended up going over to Perkins and Will, which is another Chicago-based architectural and engineering company. Terrific company doing some iconic buildings all over the world. And he became chief engineer there. And in an architectural and engineering company, the architects are the kings and the queens. And so, he always wanted to do his own thing. He had a really strong following from architects, both within P&W or Perkins and Will and around the city. So he thought he would go out and try it on his own. And so that's what he did. He, a company of one. And then soon some of the engineers from Perkins and Will followed him. And then even the architects at Perkins and Will and Skidmore wanted to give him work. So he was really good at what he did. And so he was able to start it that way and grew our company into the largest mechanical and electrical engineering firm in Chicago. And so most of our business was in the Chicago area, working in commercial office buildings and doing some healthcare. So that's how that's how.
Well, and most people would say, holy cow, man, you're doing all this big work all over Chicago, one of the greatest cities in the world. Can you handle all that? And what was your mindset as you came on board to say this is as big as it should ever get, or man, let's grow it nationally, globally, and all that? I mean, how that happened?
Well, every generation looks at things differently. And so when I joined in 1984, we were it was sort of the cusp of the analog era and the digital era, meaning we still did most of our drawings manually. And so, the pep talk my dad gave I had interned him with some summer, for some summers and heard about the business just growing up. So I kind of knew, what I was getting into. But he would say that, he was the principal of the firm, and the principals give their time away, and you really make money on the people doing the production of the drawings. And, the guys in the bullpen, and that's what we sat out in this open area, drew drawings, and that's how the business worked, right? But slowly, and then really quickly, that began to change, because in the digital world, things go a lot quicker. All of a sudden, the production of the drawings became more of a commodity every year. And then, introduced globalization that came later, where information and capital gets transferred instantaneously. Now, there's a whole huge labor market where they can produce drawings a lot cheaper than we can here. And so, I was observing all of this. I was saying, and I was doing the jobs. I did a lot of mechanical engineering jobs. I first designed buildings, ran projects, ran the mechanical department, then got kicked upstairs, started running more of the business. And I could see the margins being not crushed, but in some cases, they weren't growing and because of this fact. And so I felt like there was a need to transform the business. We have to look at it differently. And again, that's how every generation looks at it differently. And that's when, around that time, 96, 97, I started putting some changes in place to transform the business, to become more global, getting out of the commodity engineering business, going into more complex things, where it wasn't so fee driven. And I can give you an example. We really got our start when Dad started working with the Chicago Board of Trade back in 1968. He would tell the story that was the big job that put us on the map. And in 1968, the Board of Trade was an old building even then.
Sure.
They were renovating it. None of the incumbent firms wanted it. It was a really messy job. He was hungry. He wanted work. So he got it, did a great job. And what we ended up doing was uh, all of the exchanges in Chicago, because at that time, if you look back, Chicago became a big futures and options market. We kind of owned the derivatives market here in Chicago. A lot of innovation going on. So there's new floors being built for the Board of Trade, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Options Exchange, the Midwest Stock Exchange, and we did all of them. And so that put us on the map with financial services firms. We started doing more work with the traders, the market makers, the banks. All of that was a great ecosystem for us. But again, what started happening to them? Technology. And so the trading floors today are dying or dead. And so what we saw, the next generation saw, was the advent of electronic trading. And so if you think about it, in one case, our one market is going away, the open outcry exchanges, but there was a huge opportunity to take advantage of electronic trading because it's all electrical and mechanical systems. That's 80% of the cost of these trading floors that are being built in offices. So we pivoted and went all over that. And so, a lot of these jobs we can't talk about, but we started working with these high frequency traders, that the market makers. There's a very large hedge fund that's based here in Chicago, who probably know that name. We've done 20 of their offices globally. And so that is how we transform the business, by looking at it differently, understanding how our customers' needs change, but also understanding what we were good at. We were always good at working with financial services firm. We understand their industry. And so we adapted to the next thing. With that, it wasn't just doing the engineering though, because think about communications. With the internet, nobody knew what it was, or we didn't, at least, until the late 80s, early 90s. So telecommunications, that's when it started emerging. And so in addition to doing mechanical and electrical, we created a technology group to do that. So selling more services to existing customers. And it's a natural thing to do low voltage systems with the medium voltage systems. So that helped us grow our business. And I could keep going on. And then from that, everyone's got Facebook or LinkedIn or multiple things. The financial services firms were the first ones who we saw who had these data centers, the backup data centers. And so we created a group called our Mission Critical Group to design data centers. And so, and now today, not only are we big with financial services firms, but with 3 out of the 5 largest technology firms in the world, I would name them, but again, there's all these NDAs and everything. We are designing data centers all over the world for them.
Awesome.
And so that's how, again, we transformed the business by looking at it differently, taking some chances. It was not a straight line. It wasn't like, hey, let's just go do this and everything's going to work out perfectly. Lots of bumps and bruises along the way, but it's been a cool ride.
So you made me think about so many things, and I want you to keep going because your story is amazing, right? But I think about so many things as you talk about your story. I mean, one thing I always say is differentiate or die, right? I mean, in my businesses, they've changed just the same as yours. And I read a book years ago that I always recommend to people. It's an easy read, and it's just Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you heard that? I
have not.
Blue Ocean Strategy is just a book about exactly what you're doing and what your mindset. You could write this book. I mean, and I think exactly the same way now, but I didn't, 25 years ago. The bottom line is it's if you don't differentiate, just figure that you're going to be a commoditized product and you're going to struggle to stay alive. You may be in a business today that's very profitable and very rewarding, but tomorrow it could change because more people see that industry and they push the industry with technology to get more efficient than you if you're not thinking forward, right? And so basically about swimming out. If you think about a red shark infested waters, right, where they're just nipping each other's ass, right, and and their fins, whatever. There's a bloody waters. Your focus is to swim out beyond them and away from them in blue waters. And what does that but differentiation, right? So the commoditized shark-infested waters are not a good place to be, as you and I both know. You can swim out in the blue waters. It's the only way you do it is by differentiating so strong that your customers look at you differently as a great partner, because you have ideas, innovation that your competition doesn't have, right? So I think about what you're doing. You're constantly doing that. You're constantly reinventing as technology continues to advance and opportunities continue to arise with that. So it's really cool to listen to your story, because that's what I think about every time you pivot, right? Every time you have that little challenge, you recreate yourself. And initially, and we also learn that through that book and others I read, that very often second generation or a new team buys a company or old second, third generation coming into a business, and they have that protective mode, right? That they're about protecting and not losing this great golden goose, right? And with that mindset, often they lose it all because they're not the entrepreneurial, innovative company that once was, that your dad started originally serving people, right? So I love that. And, we've got a few stories on our podcast that intertwine with all the stuff you're saying. We have a gentleman, Anthony Saliba, who was a great trader in the 80s and 90s, who invented technology that he eventually sold, and he's got technology today. He's growing in the Chicago market. Anthony Saliba is an amazing guy. You should listen to his story on Ditch Digger. But bottom line is he was part of the team that was, or the group that was going to buy the Chicago Stock Exchange before Trump's election. If you remember, the people were criticizing Chicago and the Chinese for about buying this market, China money, and it was and it was an entrepreneur, not like the Chinese government. It was a Chinese entrepreneur that was partners with Anthony, and Anthony and this gentleman worked so hard to have the deal done. It was kind of done, and it was approved by the state, the city, and they're ready to close. And then after that it was publicized, and Trump actually said something negative about it, not really knowing the whole story. That deal crashed. The New York Stock Exchange bought the Chicago Stock Exchange, right? I think you may have heard, know this story.
Yeah, there's been a lot of consolidation.
Yeah, and they basically ended all job and opportunities there, where Tony would have had many jobs there. It would have been a vibrant, not like it once was, but he had his technology was going to be put in place, and he'd have great jobs out of Chicago there. And that all kind of went by the wayside with the New York Stock Exchange buying instead. But anyway, long story. But that kind of it makes me think about, again, that great mecca that once was, and it's nothing today, right? And if those traders didn't change, what they did, boy, they're not doing so well today, right? Unless they really reinvented themselves, as you and I have to do. So that's really cool stuff. I appreciate where you went with all that.
Sure.
Tell me about you as a kid, watching your dad and watching him, jump into business, taking risks. I know your brother's an entrepreneur also and a business leader. What was that family dynamics that created this, the Raj of today, and David also, and this mindset of leading people and building business that you guys have?
Yeah, I didn't think as an 8-year-old I'd be doing that. I had other thoughts. I loved playing sports, and so I was all about that. And then, and also growing up, I would hear, like as I mentioned before, I heard all these stories about the business and just kind of fell in love with it. Just the whole idea, not only the technical part, but just the business part of the business. But then also, I've always liked history and political science, economics, and things like that. And so I wasn't sure, back in 1979 when I was applying to schools, it was a time when you went in and you said, okay, I'm going to be an engineer, or I'm going to go into business, or you didn't have this undecided category necessarily. Yeah. But there was one school that had this program, and Claremont McKenna College out in California, one of 5 Claremont colleges, it's kind of unique in that sense. A lot of schools have it now, but they have a management engineering program, but you didn't have to declare your major until sometime during your sophomore year, as I recall. And they're really good at history and political science, all that stuff I love. So that's where I went because I wasn't sure. And sometime during my freshman year, I had decided that, I still love all this stuff. I still read a lot of books about history and things, but but I want to go into dad's business. And so they have this 3-2 program with different engineering schools. And after 3 years at Claremont, I ended up going to WashU in St. Louis because, again, back in the early 80s, it was before all this emphasis on the environment and everything. It was one of the few schools that had a program in building sciences. There's a lot of them now, again. So that's how I ended up there. And there was a very influential teacher there named Bill Code, who, in addition to my father, was just a wonderful teacher. He taught me the importance of being able to take complex topics, complex engineering topics, and how to explain them to lay people. And that's one of the things that stuck with me with him, as well as him really helping to educate me.
Awesome. And yeah, when I think about, what you're saying there, right? The mentorship, the stories, for me, I didn't care if my kids went in my businesses. And today, two of the first 3 in the working world are in my businesses, right? One, my son's the CEO now of all our companies, YPO now as well. And my daughter, Janelle, is running our national business. And they're 33 and 31. And I have a 30-year-old that's an attorney for Ernst & Young and a 19-year-old son that just graduated high school. But you know what? I love telling the stories, and I love the customers that I was able to serve over the years, and I love the teammates on my team, right? So I'd come home after working, and I'd make dinner a few nights a week usually, and I would tell all the stories, what went on at work, right? And they're always so fun to tell. I didn't realize I was at, my daughters, my son, I was inspiring them to want to be in this dirty business I'm in, right? Because that, they didn't think they wanted to be paving, at the time, paving driveways or parking lots. But eventually, as they, went through college and had other jobs and all that, they came back to our business saying, man, I'd love to, they, really wanted to be in it because they loved the stories, they loved our teammates, they loved what we were doing, and they loved the growth. And by the time they got out of college, there was a lot of opportunities. But I guess what I'm saying is, I hear very often, I hear friends of mine saying, in our businesses like yours and mine that might be smaller, they're saying, I sure don't want my kids doing this for the rest of their lives. I'm telling them, go to college and go find a good job and go be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, right? And yet I'm glad I didn't say that or position it that way to my kids, because I wasn't a big fan. I didn't go to college. My wife didn't. I wasn't a huge I wasn't a fan because I didn't really understand what I would have gained in college, I guess, at the time. But bottom line is, I believe if you tell passionate stories about what you're having fun with in business or life, your kids will probably follow some of those stories, the ones that they choose that they want to, right? With no pressure that they have to go into the business or they have to be part of it, right? You have kids, you have your own, and
I do. I have kids, but my dad told me not to go into the business because it's a tough business. And, and I think back, I mentioned earlier that they came to this country pretty much penniless, and worked their way up. So they didn't really have all of these opportunities to pick what they wanted to do. Right. And so someone offered him a job. He goes, I'm there. Right. And so it wasn't, when you ask for, what are you looking for? What were you looking for in an offer? And so it wasn't. And so so he was good. He said, this is a tough business. You should go into medicine. And, I don't like blood and I partied too much anyways, but it ended up all right. And so when I, raising my 3 kids, and so mine are 29, 27, 25 respectively. And I can tell you a little bit more about them. I tried to learn from that, and I said, look, you have some great opportunities. You're fortunate because you're getting a great education. You have the wherewithal to choose whatever you want to do. please go out and do whatever you're passionate about. And, you know, I'm here to serve as a mentor, share my experience with you, but in no way am expecting you to get into the business. My youngest one, Jared, the 25-year-old, was at ESD, that's the name of our company, was there for a while. But what he's decided to do, he wants to join the Air Force. And so he's going to be enlisting in a couple months. And, you know, that's great. That's his life path.
Awesome.
The middle one, Al, is in Brooklyn, social worker, doing God's work, and just tough job, as a giver. And my oldest, Alexa, moved up to Deerfield, where she grew up, got married, and is a graphic designer. So they married a great guy, and so they're all going in their own different ways, and I'm proud of them because they're pursuing their own paths.
And that's what you want. You want to pursue, but if their path that they want to pursue is in your business because they're passionate about it. Right?
No, that'd be great. Yeah, and you know David very well. I have another brother, Mark, and the oldest is Rita, our sister, and her son works for me at the company, and so you know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, awesome. When you think about you know, your business path currently and where you want to go with this business, you're the chairman, but you're a young chairman. Are you still the visionary? I mean, well, you are, right? I mean, are you?
You know, I'm in WPO. I'm not in YPO anymore.
I'm with you, buddy, but it's not called WPO anymore. Get this right. It's called YPO Gold. All right. Take away the G, it's YPO Old, but
exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm in that as well, right? But
see, I'm so old I can't remember.
What's that?
I'm just kidding.
So when you think about the future, are you the visionary still, or you have other people that are visionaries in your businesses, or what?
Yeah, we have a lot of visionaries. You know, sometimes too many, right? But you know, it's great. I'm really excited about the future of our company. Right now, I serve as executive chairman, so I still have an active role in the company. But you know, we've put that next wave into place, and so. What I've seen too many times happen in the architectural, engineering, real estate, construction world is that the people who are running it don't think about succession planning until it's too late. And so they either end up selling the company, or, which is okay, you know, or just the transition doesn't happen. And so I believe in making that happen early, and so we've done that, and that enables me to focus on the things I'm more passionate about. Quite frankly, the CEO that we have right now, Zach House, he's much better at execution than I am, especially as we've grown. He's a Marine, and so he's got that discipline, you know, and he doesn't have wake up with a different idea every morning like I do, you know, and so it's it's great. So we're good at balancing each other. But so I've been going into things, you know, I'm still I help with the business development. I am help with mentoring our younger leaders. I've been getting very, very involved now because with COVID and how it affects buildings, it's pretty profound. And so as it relates to indoor air quality and wellness, I've been getting involved with that, with doing different speaking engagements and research in that area. And so I'm got a lot to do, and I like it. And so the other thing that we've done, and I don't think I touched on this earlier, because we've become so specialized, we're doing everything from the world's tallest building in the Middle East to one of the largest data centers in the world here in the United States. And you got to have the best and the brightest, and you got to have a collaborative group. And so we really have decentralized things, because there isn't anyone who understands everything that we do now. And so it can't come from the top down. And so we've decentralized things, and so we have a lot of great creative people, and that's what I find so exciting about ESD. You know, if I want to go learn about 5G, I call this one guy. If I want to learn about advanced controls, we have a great lady who knows all about that. If I want to talk about tall buildings, you know, I can keep going on and on. We have all of that. And it's really a fun place to be right now.
How cool is that, right? To have so many of those great minds on the team compared to, you know, when you were younger, I'm younger, what I do, we go outside and we try to align ourselves with friends that have the knowledge we don't have, and we, you know, ask for some coaching, whatever, and try to form relationships of trust with engineers or, you know, whoever we're looking for that has the knowledge we don't. But how cool is that as you grow to have a lot of those great minds all on your team, right? That could be, you know, aligned and learning constantly in their own kind of lane, right? So that's got to be a blast to watch that happen. And
it is fun. Yeah, it's fun to watch them grow. It's gratifying for me to see that, and so
can you tell
fun.
me? So you mentioned your mentoring, and I do as well, and I don't do it in a strategic way as much as I want to in the future, mentoring young leaders. You know, Robbie, that's with us today, is a young leader in our organization. You know, future executive in a short period of time, probably, right? He's a great guy.
I see he's wearing the sweater, so he's got
he
drank the Kool-Aid. He drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, the cardigan.
Oh, it's a cardigan. Wow.
Oh yeah.
You guys are really advanced.
I think he's talking to a couple old guys today. You know, he's trying to appease us, right, with the
Yeah,
cardigan.
I should be wearing the cardigan.
Exactly. Me too.
Where's my pipe?
But so when you think of mentoring, Raj, does ESD have like a mentoring program that's more like strategic or formulated, or is it kind of just mentor as you go? Or tell me about that.
Well, there's a couple of things. So, you know, within our groups, we rely on the teams within the groups for the technical mentoring, because that's how we've all learned. You know, you can open a book and read it, but until you're actually doing it, that's when you really learn something. Mm-hmm. And so technical mentoring happens within the group. We also have training that we offer. We also encourage our people to go out and do their own training. We'll pay for it. But, you know, that's when you see people taking responsibility for their own education, that's what you like to see, that both inside and outside. And then we do have some mentoring programs within the company about leadership. And, you know, when I talk to people about that, you know, what is leadership? And you know, have you ever been to one of those seminars where you're talking about leadership and they go, what does it mean to you? And then you write a word up on the board, and then everybody puts 10 words, and then you got 100 words up there, and then you start crossing them out, the ones that are similar, and you know, you boil it down. And so for me, what's been really helpful is learning from the late Jack Welch about leadership. And he talks about the 4 E's. And so I talk about this all the time in our company, because it's easy to remember. and you could take any, like, if you give me a leadership term, usually I could put it in one of these 4 E's. I actually added a 5th E called ethics. Okay, and so what do I look for? You know, is the person ethical? Can you trust them? And you know, that's almost like a prerequisite, right? That they have to be trustable. Is their word good? But so the thing he talks about is energy. You know, not are they bouncing off the walls, but is the person proactive? You know, does she want to come to work? Does she offer good ideas? Does she want to succeed? You know, you want that person. And again, it's not always the person who talks the most or who's bouncing off the walls. Sure. It comes in all kinds of different forms. Absolutely. Second thing is she an energizer? And so does she energize the people around her? Do people want to be at the company or on her team because she's there? So that usually means, is she a motivator? You know, and does she help? Does she have a genuine interest in her subordinates or her peers or her clients in their welfare? You know, that's that energizes the people
Absolutely.
around her. The third thing is edge. So Jack Welch talks about edge. So many times, and I don't know if it's with engineers especially, because we're introverts or something, but a person with the edge faces confrontation or doesn't avoid it, realizes that there's a problem, so confront the problem, is able to make tough decisions. And so that's what he meant by edge. And so quite often it could be asking that customer for, when are you going to pay us, or having that difficult conversation with an employee. Those are kind of the things that you want to help. And I find myself having to talk a lot about edge with my up and coming leaders. And it's something I have to remind myself of. I consider myself a nice guy, and we're working with these customers for 30 years. Yeah, he'll pay us. Yeah, but hey, I got to listen to my own advice.
Yeah.
And then the final thing is execution. Okay. And so in the end, all leaders have to deliver. But execution it's not always did they get from point A to point B. Almost in every project you run into obstacles. And so a good leader can find a way to work around those obstacles, whether it's getting the team or getting the team together to come up with creative solutions or doing something else. That's what a leader does. And so when I get together with, whether it's our seasoned veterans or our up and comers, that's how I look at it, and I try to talk to them with those 5 E's, and it's been very, very helpful.
I love it. And the thing I think when I look at a leader, I say, is this person a leader? I mean, the question I ask myself is, do they inspire others to be better than they would be without them? Right? Are they inspiring everybody, everybody around them to rise up and raise their game more than they would if that person wasn't around them, right? Because if you don't inspire others to be better, then you're not really a leader. If you don't inspire others that want to follow you, that want to crash through a wall for you, right? Probably not a leader, right? If you're looking to hold people down and because you're afraid they're gonna rise above you, right? Boy, you're probably not a leader. And those 5 things you just said explain it perfectly. I love it.
Well, we all have blind spots.
If you have those 5 things, you're gonna inspire people to be great, and that's what you do.
And none of us are perfect. We all have blind spots. We may have different blind spots in different situations.
Sure.
What I've seen over the course of the year, or the course of my career, as we evaluate promoting people, some people are really well liked. They talk a good game. They always talk about what they're going to do. Everybody loves them, but they just don't deliver for some reason. They're always talking about what they're going to do. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or there's the person, and I made this is another mistake I've made, is that there's a person who always delivers. Okay. He always delivers. I could call this guy at 11 o'clock at night and say, I need this done. He will deliver every single time. But the problem is, I don't know how many people he's going to run over on the way to getting delivered. So he's a nightmare with people. Okay. And so people don't want to be on the bus with him. They actually may want to quit. And so in the long term, if someone doesn't fit the culture, even if they're your best person at execution, I learned the hard way that that's not such a good thing.
But you have 3 core values, is that right? 3 core values. So when I saw the core values, but you can talk about those a little bit. But I look at your core values and say, if they have those 3 core values, they're gonna have a mix of all those things. And even though they're a person the one that gets things done, they execute well. You're probably gonna understand that respect everyone is part of your core values. So hopefully over time they say, I gotta be careful how I get things done, right? If they want to be on your team for the long haul. And if somebody has the aspiration of being a leader, they better exude these 3 character traits, right? Otherwise, I'm not going to be there. Can you tell us about how those came about?
again, learning from other companies. There's a lot of companies that put a lot of stuff on the wall, and sometimes you wonder, is it all BS or anything? But so first of all, we wanted to get to the root of what's really important, and respecting everyone. That there's a reason it's the first thing that's out there, and because it's true to our values. If there isn't respect in an organization, especially a service organization like ours, we're not going to be able to accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. Plus, my dad created this family type atmosphere, and I like that. I want that at the company. It's something that's not negotiable. It doesn't matter what your position is. Everybody says hi, or I say hi to everybody, and the I know sometimes it seems like, what do they say? The inmates are running the asylum, but we listen to everyone, or try to, and that's just part of our culture. And I'm very proud of the fact that we have a really good record of employee retention, and so the other thing that goes with that is, in today's world, I mentioned to you about how we're decentralized. Our success depends on people who are collaborators and sharers of information. And so for us to come up with innovative solutions, like I said, designing these data centers or these zero energy buildings, and it really does take a village. And so there isn't one person in our organization who does it. We have to bring in other people. So by respecting everyone, that is one of our core values. And then of course working hard. Okay, and so you may say, yeah, of course you're going to work hard, but we don't measure how much time somebody spends in the office. Those are old ways to measure productivity. Again, and when I go back to the analog era, when I first joined, we had sign in and sign out sheets in our company, and so we expect everyone to work hard. There's peer pressure that takes care of that if people aren't there and they're not committed, they kind of get weeded out on their own. But there's just this expectation that you're not going to let your neighbor down. You're going to work hard, and we're going to work as a team. And if you see your neighbor in trouble, you're going to reach out and help him or her. And so that's the kind of stuff that goes with that. And we try to instill that, and then play to win. Who wants to lose, right? But the reason that's important for me is, and it goes back to the example of what I told you at the very beginning, was when I first took over, I was playing not to lose. I just, Dad gave me the keys to the car. Okay, don't crash it. Just full tank of gas. Just don't. But hey, let's play to win. And what does that mean? It's first of all, we demand excellence, but it also goes to that risk taking. We're going to go take those risks to make ourselves better, and so that's how I look at those three values and how they interrelate.
Yeah. And while I was at LinkedIn, actually speaks to your point, almost completely aligned. But the way that Jeff Weiner explained it was that the definition of leadership for him was inspiring others to achieve your mission and vision while upholding your culture and values. So it seems like it's perfectly in line.
I like that.
With the way that you're ultimately following through and executing on it, which obviously is one of your 5 E's. But I guess one of the questions I do have is a curiosity around how you apply your culture and values specifically into your performance management process as you're evaluating employees, and then eventually when it comes time to decide who the eventual promotion is awarded to or offered to. Do you guys align your mission and vision or your culture and values with performance management, or are those two separate silos?
No, they're in there. And so, we went online with all of this stuff. And so, the thing that we're trying to do is encourage continuous reviews rather than somebody sitting at the end of the year, going down this list the old fashioned way. And so, part of it is just talking about our 3 values at almost every meeting and giving examples of what this means. Like when we have town halls, we have something called shout outs, where anybody in the company can publicly recognize someone and show how they were adhering or glorifying one of our values. And then we have that is in the evaluation process. And so we have the 5 E's in the evaluation process as well. And so again, if someone is delivered on everything they were supposed to do, but again, ran over people and people quit from his group, the attrition rate wasn't so good in his group because they were leaving, all that stuff we look at and take into account. But what we don't have is like a scoring system, because a good part of this is subjective, when you look at it. And so it is part numbers, but it's also, there's a subjectivity to it as well. But we take all those factors in, and so that's why then we also have a lot of discussions about it too, and because it is somewhat subjective, when the things that people bring to the benefits that they bring to the company, and so it's hard, and it should be, but that's how we do it.
Yeah. Is the subjectivity based on the personality or the experience that maybe the gap on the team that you're looking to solve for? And maybe there's intangibles that you can't actually quantify for that?
I think there's intangibles. And then what I've also seen is, just like in college, you have some professors that are really hard graders and some professors give everybody A's, and so I'm skeptical of just giving a number for everything and then adding that number up and then looking, oh, look at this score, and
right.
And but then when you talk about something that somebody does where they're mentoring people, how do you give a score to that, or the impact that somebody has on the organization from the things that she may do? So that's why I think it's really important to have that conversation. Then you also see the improvement that people make. Say someone had to work on their interpersonal skills, and maybe was more aware of it and made improvement of that area. Okay, great. Let's recognize it. I don't know how you put a number to that.
Yeah,
but,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Raj, when you look at, tell us about a couple of your toughest times in leading the business when you really had to pivot and do something different. Over whether it be 2000, 9/11, 2008, or today with COVID. Tell us where you ran across a tough time and your team pulled together. With people with these 5 E's, right? That you're grooming. How do they show their strength and leadership to help you pivot and make change?
Yeah, well, we're still in the midst of what's going on now, but I think maybe 10 years from now, when I look back, I think I'm going to look back and probably say this is the toughest time of my career. I thought it was 2008. I was always look back and talk about how we got through that. So maybe I'll start with that, because what was different about 2008 than other recessions is in most recessions, they were somewhat mild, or the ones I've been through. Mm-hmm. And since we have a diversified business where we do commercial buildings, data centers, mixed use, maybe hospitals, maybe one or two of those sectors would go down, but the others would still be somewhat good. In 2008, everything collapsed. And so we were forced with, it was a tricky situation. Now, fortunately, we've always been financially strong, kind of waiting for that rainy day. I think in a service business, many companies do not make those tough decisions early enough, and they take on too much debt for no reason. And so, fortunately, we had solid bank account and everything. I didn't really feel like there was an existential threat to the business, but I knew we were going to be hurt. So what I came out with was something called the survive and thrive strategy for that. We knew it was going to be painful, just gave, the important thing was on the communication side, just being very transparent with our employees about here's what's going on. You know, we're solid, but we've got these 5 clients who just went under who aren't going to pay us, and you know, all kinds of stuff. I'm sure you probably went through a lot of the same thing. And so what I learned from that was just being very transparent with our employees. You know, we had some difficult layoffs we had to do eventually, but you know, also then surviving, right? But then thriving. So setting that vision for what were we going to do afterwards, you know, giving them hope, but real hope, not BS, showing, okay, here's what's going on right now, but here's where we're going to double down our efforts. I mentioned before about hiring some of the best people. You got to be careful if you're laying off people, but you're also hiring people.
Right.
But again, this is where the transparency is important. You know, we articulated what business lines we wanted to still support. And so that was a lessons learned that I'm applying to today. And today is even harder because it's easier in some ways, but it's harder because communications are so good that, you know, back in when 9/11 happened or that, you know, if we had to work at home 20 years ago, the technology wasn't there. So, so that's a benefit, but it is hard when, you know, we have this pandemic, we have social unrest, we have so many things going on right now that are just disconcerting. And so open communication and transparency is really, really important. We're showing our employees our numbers. We are giving them straight talk about what we may have to do if the economy keeps slowing down. We are talking about our vision for the future of where we're still going to invest heavily, and we just like 10 years ago, we are financially strong again, so no long-term debt. We're going to get through this. But then we have to always look at what's next. And so with the pandemic, what's happening? There's such a renewed interest on health and wellness. That plays to our strengths. We're extremely busy right now in certain areas because when they talk about indoor air quality, that's what we do. And so, that's an area for us. Or this whole thing about the distributed workforce or work from home. We embraced that 3 years ago because again, it's hard for us to find people. And so and we have offices in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, but now, you know, since we've embraced this work from anywhere type thing, we can hire people. We've got people working for us in, you know, 15 states. And so they don't necessarily have to come into the office. And so we didn't see a pandemic coming. We were just doing it for competitive reasons.
Yeah.
But now more of our clients are going towards that. And so they're looking at moving forward, embracing, they're going to have an office, but it's going to be different. And they're going to embrace this flexible workforce. But a lot of that's enabled by IT and the stuff that we do.
Right.
So again, another opportunity, right? And so, so we've positioned ourselves to take advantage of those two threads, and we're determined to become leaders in that, assisting in the helping companies get a distributed workforce, make that happen. There's a lot of technology and things behind the scenes that need to happen. And then secondly, with wellness and indoor air quality, we're quite busy there.
Yeah, I'm interested in that, Raj. Can you tell me about how do you improve the indoor air quality? Is it like a whole new system, or is there components you can add to a current system? You know, let's say we have a 100,000 square foot building in Schaumburg that we own and occupy some of, right? And it's a 30-year-old system, right? What do you gotta like swap everything out, or can you add components to it to make it better, or what do you?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to swap everything out. You know, if it's designed to code, the many HVAC systems are very good. They have all the parts and pieces there. Now, if they're old, you may have to swap those out. But as it relates to airborne transmission, okay. So let me back up. The most important thing you can do is, first of all, keep sick people out of the building, right?
Sure.
Through testing or new HR rules that say, hey, if you're not feeling well, we get it. Don't be a hero. Don't come in, right? We know that's not foolproof, especially since a certain percentage of the population is asymptomatic. They don't show signs.
Right.
So the second thing is listen to Dr. Fauci. Practice the social distancing. Wear the mask, because what happens is you don't know if the person you're talking to has the symptoms or has it, because of what we just talked about. So through airborne droplets, they're talking to you, they cough, they laugh, they're just talking to you. It hits you in the face, goes in your eyes, nose, mouth, you get the disease. So the second most important thing, practice social distancing, right? Third thing is some of these droplets, they don't hit you in the face, but they hit surfaces, laying on the floor. So good hygiene. Again, common sense. Wash things down, wash your hands, don't touch your face. So that's part of it. So where does airborne transmission come in? They're still learning a lot about this novel virus, they call it, right? Novel because it's new. But based on other viruses, some of these droplets, the moisture around it evaporates and the virus becomes airborne. And they are tiny, tiny, really tiny particles that don't get picked up by filters, okay? So this is what we're concerned with airborne transmission. So this is the part we get involved with. So what do you do? The things you can do from your HVAC system is, first of all, dilute the concentration of those by bringing in more outside air, bring in more fresh air, right? And so many systems can do that. Your HVAC system, you should be able to open it up, bring in more outside air. What you want to make sure as we get into summer is that your system is able to handle it, that it has the capacity to handle it. Run the systems longer. So maybe an hour or so before people get there and an hour afterwards. That further dilutes the concentration of the contaminants. Since you're bringing in more outside air, that means you're pressurizing the building with air. So that also means that you could turn up some of your exhaust systems. There's a lot of concern about the transmission of the disease in restrooms. So all restrooms are exhausted directly to the outside. So if you're bringing in more outside air into your office, turn up your restroom exhaust so you're exhausting more directly outside. And you may have a break room or cafeteria, turn those up while you're still pressurizing the building. Does that make sense so far?
It does. I
Okay.
just don't know if, like, our building our age, does it have the capability to do all those things?
Well,
Right?
you have to look at it. And then there's other things like upgrading the filters in your air handling units. And if you can get filters that are more efficient, they're usually better at getting those smaller particles, which the virus is very, very, very small. There's other things like air cleaners. You may have heard about UV lights, or there's even bipolar ionization. You know, they make all this stuff sound scary and complicated, so guys like me get hired. But the and then there's also things you could do locally. So that's in your HVAC unit. But if you could picture this, that a bunch of people are coming into your conference room unexpectedly or expectedly, 15 people come into the room. You know, sick people and healthy people are all exhaling. And so there's local things that you could do. Portable air cleaners with HEPA filters, or, they make UV systems that go in the upper level of the ceiling so it's not harmful to people. So there's things like that. That's what we help and we consult on and help people
Wow. So how many of your team members were capable already to be able to consult on these things, and how many have got? Is there some certification or something that has to happen now for COVID different than otherwise, or can you tell us about that?
Well, how many of our team members? Well, I mean, that's what we do. We
Yeah.
design systems that meet certain lead requirements. There's also something that's emerging, or it's been out there, called well building, and I think you're going to see more buildings getting certified, because that's more about wellness, whereas
Okay.
LEED is about energy and
Sure.
conservation and all that kind of stuff. Well focuses almost exclusively on the health of people in buildings. And so now what's emerging is the scorecards, where just like you have a LEED scorecard, tenants are going to say, do you hit these 45 points
Uh-huh.
that a well building has? And the landlords are going to have to answer that. And so what we're helping both sides on, because we work with both sides, is retrofitting buildings, or just counseling building owners about how to meet the well building standards, and then things that tenants can. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I love the way you're really moving in a direction right now
Yeah, and then talking about to tenants also about what they can do, and now, but then also looking for future leases. What provisions should they put in the lease? That's where it's going next.
Okay, so think about this, Robbie. So Robbie started with us in an organization we have called Site, and Raj, Site is a new company we started a couple of years ago. That 2.5 years ago. It was a product we built as a service within our national business, Ray-Ban America, to basically survey, assess pavements, and then roofs and facades for buildings all over the country. And we can do it all over the world today using drones and using satellites, right? So we use drones on most buildings that we have a kind of portfolio for, Walmart distribution centers, let's say, or Prologis we do a lot of work for, and others. And we fly these drones at every site annually, and basically we document existing conditions, we document urgent needs, we build 5 and 10 year plans to maintain pavements is our thing, right? And roofs, we also have great roofing consultants also. So pavements and roofs are our strengths. But then we have other people that are in the facade world, or HVAC. They want to get that, capture the exterior components on a building. But I look at this, Raj, as an opportunity, and Robbie's smarter than me. He's probably already ran this through his head, partnering with somebody like ESD to say, hey, we're out there already on thousands of buildings a year. And the average building we look at is a few 100,000 square foot building. We have a bunch of, couple million square foot buildings also. We do a little bit in data centers, but not a lot yet. But so we're looking at going inside buildings to do things for our customers too. We're out there already, right? And capturing everything we can on the inside. So let's just say your team said, okay, Ray-Ban, or Site, our technology company, you're going to be at these 3,000 buildings this year for extra, I don't know, $100 or something like that. Send your drone engineer inside, and drone or not, doesn't need a drone for this, but let's capture these things inside that building. And you know what? We can give you kind of a general idea of how they can improve, the health side of their building, the wellness side of their building, right? I mean, it might be something that could be done, right? It'd be a cool idea.
Pretty cool idea to explore. Yeah, that reminds me of one thing I wanted to mention too that we're doing. We created a spin-off company called Cohesion, and what it does is, what we're building through this, and we're about to close our fundraising round, and hopefully I have some good things to tell you in a couple of weeks. But we're creating a digital twin of the points that we measure in our building system. So the digital twin meaning we're measuring all these thousands of points in a building right now, in the HVAC system, electrical systems, lighting, access control. I can keep going, like 20 different subsystems in the building, but none of these systems can usually talk to each other. And so what we're doing, and we have a pilot program going on right now with Riverside Development at 150 North Riverside downtown in Chicago, where, as it relates to indoor air quality, we're measuring things like the level of carbon dioxide in the system, and some other things, particulate matter in the system. And we can the goal is over time is then to be able to automatically change things that happen in the building. So bring in more outside air into that conference room, because CO2 serves as a proxy for the amount of outside air. Those 15 people come into a room, the carbon dioxide level goes up.
Yeah.
We need more fresh air. Let's do it automatically, right? Or, you know, the how about that conference center where, you know, we have occupancy sensors in the room. It's been used, and we want the cleaning crew to come in there before the next meeting happens.
Right.
We can send signals automatically to the cleaning crew. And so say there's 10 conference rooms on a floor, you come down, you know, on your smartphone, you can read the carbon dioxide level, or it'll tell you, you know, there's fresh air in there, fresh air, good to go. And also that it's been cleaned, and it can direct you to exactly the right conference room to go into.
Wow.
Rather than you picking one of 10 indiscriminately. So those are just really easy examples, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do if you can build this digital twin and then tie in like the stuff you're doing, maybe with the drones or any information. And so we're real excited about that. It's called Cohesion.
I like that. I like the concept of the digital twin, right? Because you can do the same thing what we're doing with pavements and roofs and facades and all the things we're doing, right? You know, understand the customer's expectations of their property, understand their budgets, and then build the digital twin based on those things, right? Not a digital twin that's way beyond what they're ever going to spend, right? But something that says, yeah, that's who we are, that's our brand, and that's what we want, right? In the future someday. And
right.
So how do we get there, right?
Yeah, and then, you know, what you have to there's a lot of things we can build these days, but, you know, we have to demonstrate how are we going to deliver value? Why would somebody want to pay for it? And that's also part of the fun part.
Well,
right?
yeah, within the digital twin, you could probably show, you know, where you save, where it's a cost-effective life cycle savings, right? And in some cases where it's an environmental improvement, but maybe not a cost savings life cycle deal, right? So yeah, I love it.
And then where it's going, where we believe it's going with these certifications, is they're going to mandate that to get certified, you need to be able to measure it and show it to make it transparent. So
that's cool. That's cool. So all right, we're going to talk more, Raj. We should get our a couple of our engineers together. We're actually I have a CEO search right now because my son was the CEO of that company. He's become the CEO of our group of companies now. And
congratulations.
Robbie before worked directly for Austin in that business. Today, Austin, you know, took Robbie with him because he knew of his character and his strength and leadership. So Robbie has to replace. So Robbie also looks over that business too with all of our businesses. But again, I would love to get some of our engineers together the years. You can see what we're doing, and then your minds will say, hey, here's what you can capture while you're out there for us. And then you guys can be the expert that we recommend to our customers as well, right?
I've only got one problem though.
Yeah.
One concern. Robbie's a Packer fan, evidently.
Yeah, you see that, don't you?
Oh my God.
I was hoping you wouldn't see that. I was hoping you wouldn't see that, Raj.
I'm not that old. I'm not that blind.
Well, we'll keep Robbie far away then from your team, okay?
Yeah, I'll stand on the sidelines. It's cool.
If they would stop beating us all the time, you know, it wouldn't be so bad. But.
I know. Our time is coming, okay? It's only been like 20 years they've been kicking our butts, so we're going to get there. Eventually, we're going to have our 20 years run, okay?
We're only going to have Rodgers for another couple of years, so it might be game over at that point.
No, you know.
Well, I'm actually starting to like him because I always like the veterans more than the young whippersnappers. So he's a great guy.
He's a quality guy. Unfortunately.
Well, I just have one other question, and then Raj, we usually like to do main takeaways from the conversation.
Okay, but wait a second. Hey, Robbie, really quick, do you like that idea? We got to find
oh yeah,
our team members to meet up with his to Raj's and say.
Yeah, that would be terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better believe I already had that written down, so I completely agree.
Good.
Yeah. So the question that I have is actually right in line with the site and Cohesion partnership idea, but maybe more in line with ESD and how you guys work. So I guess my hypothesis is now that there's been such a drastic reduction in employment on a macroeconomic scale, that the role of partnerships moving forward is going to become like extremely crucial to the success or failure of the growth and scale of business globally. So I'm interested in just understanding how you guys have leveraged partnerships to augment scale, having gone from worked in just the Chicagoland to now a global business, and then the ways that you guys are thinking about that for the future.
Yeah, well, you know, what I think this is going to show is that some trends that are already happening will just get accelerated. And maybe that's the basis of your question here. So when I talked about earlier that this whole distributed workforce model, it started happening. But now it's just on steroids because we were all forced to do it. The thing with alliances, you know, and as it related to the whole globalization thing, that started a while ago too. Because now what happens is that if you're a buyer of services, if you're buying, say, the different design services you need to do the world's tallest building, you can come to Chicago. If you're building this building in Abu Dhabi or Jeddah, you can come to Chicago to find us, who are really, that's one of our specialties, how to design the mechanical and electrical systems for a super tall building. We'll provide that, but we're not the experts locally about what to do. So there'll be an alliance with us and a local engineer. And so that's been happening in our industry quite a bit from the design side. And then also with the production of drawings. I mentioned to you that you know, our guys are the big idea guys, but we have a distributed workforce in India that helps us with production. So it's been already happening. I'm not clear yet about whether that trend's going to accelerate because of this, but maybe it's a logical thing that it will, given what you said about just all the disruption with the labor force.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, Raj.
I think it's going to happen. Not sure yet. Maybe a little too early for me to tell on with my part of the industry.
Right. Raj, you're all over the world nowadays, and it's really cool that you're serving businesses and you're serving, you know, these industries all over the world, because you're bringing back opportunities and jobs and income to this country of ours. You could go anywhere. I mean, your headquarters is still in Chicago?
We're headquartered in Chicago, and we have offices in New York and San Francisco. And then, as I mentioned before, you know, we have some people scattered throughout the country because they don't necessarily need to be in an office. And then we have a partner in India, a production partner, and that constitutes our office. But what, you know, to go to Robbie's point, we're doing more alliances where we're teaming up with competitors. You know, one of the things we're good at is doing convention centers. And so the Javits Convention Center in New York was getting renovated. So they paired us with a local engineer from New York who we compete with at times. And so there is a lot of that kind of stuff happening. Or as I mentioned before, you know, we created a technology group that designs security, AV systems, what we call low voltage systems. And so they may work on by themselves or with some of our competitors, you know, who are doing the engineering. So it's there's all kinds of different flavors out there.
So I'm like you. You know, all our businesses are Chicago-based headquarters, and most of them work all over the country. We don't do much outside the country yet, but we plan on with some of them. So I'm asked the question: why do you stay in Illinois when the taxes continue to rise, and we, you know, now the highest combined tax environment in the country? What keeps you here in Illinois compared to just, I mean, you're all over. You can go, you could be in Tennessee with the headquarters, or Florida or Texas, non-income tax states, right?
Yeah, no, you know, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, Illinois and the state has its challenges. The bulk of our people are here. And so, you know, but Chicago still, you know, has some benefits. When you look at our offices in New York and San Francisco, it's still a lower cost place to live with great advantages, you know, and since we are working all over the country and all over the world, by having a 3-hub airport here in Chicago, we can get anywhere in a day. And so that's helpful too. And so it is a concern, we need to address the fiscal situation here for the long-term viability of all of our companies. But for right now.
Because as you think, I'm sure on an annual basis, we have to compete, and we're sometimes a couple, 2-3% more than a competitor, and we're not going to get work. Well, in Illinois compared to, let's say, Texas, where we're in the middle of the country with great access to air travel and all that, as we have in Chicago, a big difference. I mean, when there's not that the income tax, state income tax, right? So what do you have to weigh that every year? How do you do that? How do you weigh that as the leader of this organization? And I'm like you, I don't want to leave this state either. It's my home state. It's the state I love. But eventually our competitive advantages are less as we stay here and our competitors go to these non-income tax state income tax states, right?
Right. I mean, right now, again, we have, out of our 300 people, over 200 are in Chicago. So, and so, as I said before, the tax rates where we are in these other states are even higher in California and New York, those other states. And so it doesn't mean, but we have to remain vigilant. Yes. And so it's something we're keeping an eye on. But for right now, we intend to keep our headquarters here. Great.
We need more of us, buddy. We need more of us. And we need more of us to fight for competitive taxes as well. So that we're not forced to leave. So we don't say, gosh, we've got to leave to compete,
Right.
You're strong in differentiation as we are as well, and that's what keeps us vibrant and competitive. We're always moving the ball forward, but sometimes that's not enough. And when it's directly a commoditized product to get in the door with the customer, and we can't compete, right? So again, we always got to look at these things and use our voice when we can to communicate that, hey, let's work on these things.
What did I say at the beginning? Only the paranoid survive. So we always got to stay vigilant.
Absolutely. Hey, so Raj, we got a ton of awesome stuff out of you, brother. We have so many people learning so many things and
terrific,
and getting so much out of this. It's a blessing to have you on. Robbie always catches kind of the nuggets, right? The nuggets of information success that we find and somebody like you. I mean, I took a few things from it. I tell you what, I love that exactly what you said. Only the paranoid survive. We think that way constantly. It's a big, it's going to make us think differently. I love your core values. Only 3. I mean, we have 5, and we have a couple that are same as yours, and then even the last one plays well with one of ours. But I like the 5 E's as well. But I got a ton out of this. I'm gonna be stealing some of your stuff here, brother.
Well, it's meant to share, like you're sharing it with everyone else. I hope I can share. If I could share a couple of nuggets, then that'll be great.
You shared a bunch. Robbie's a lot sharper than me. So, Robbie, what'd you get out of this, bud?
That's not true. Well, hopefully we can have him back on once we form a site and Cohesion partnership. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'd love to introduce you to our CEO. Through Shiva Kumar, who real dynamo and just has done a great job with Cohesion.
Awesome. Hey, let me introduce you one more thing, Robbie. I didn't tell Raj about, but here's how far we're going with that business. We partner with a company in Israel, and we now can we own the rights we have a license for all North America. Now we use our drones for what we use them for when it comes to getting all the imagery and all the things we do, and our engineers really build the plans and everything from those. But we've got a product now that's a bolt-on to site. It's incredible. It's called Utilus is the name of the company that we partnered with. But they discovered this one young engineer in Israel figured out how to understand where the water was in planets all over our galaxy. Okay, so for NASA uses his technology today. He licenses technology nowadays. If you've heard about Venus and Mars and they're understanding what moisture, water is on these planets, whether the ponds, lakes, oceans, whatever, it's his technology that's figuring this out. So this young man partnered with a really smart prior CEO, prior general in the Israeli army, and they're blowing this business up. And their main product was to understand where treated water was underground. So where treated water leaks are at, okay? And they can see from satellites leaks up to a gallon an hour from satellites as deep as 10 feet in the ground. So you think about what that does for a water utility, right? So they're currently in 25 or 6 countries now with partnerships of big water utilities, understanding where all the leaks are, like never, the most productive way to understand leaks in the ground. It's incredible. So I met them. They flew here to meet my son and I and one of our engineers. Got to be friends with them fast. They're super innovative, really great people. And I sent them back home I said, okay, guys, I love the treated water thing. We can help you with some relationships, but it's not really in our wheelhouse. But groundwater is, and moisture in roofs is. If we can tell our customers where the moisture problems are in roofs or groundwater below pavements, we're going to help extend the life of these products, right? And so sure enough, we sent them back with a few properties where we'd already spent a lot of money understanding groundwater and moisture in roofs, and had all the answers to these. We're spending a ton of money with ground penetrating radar. And they came back within a few months and said, okay, we got to figure it out. And they had more information, better information than the tens of thousands of dollars we spent on ground penetrating radar, all from satellite imagery. And so now we have a product. First of the year, we partnered with them on that. Now we can understand groundwater in any property in the world fast through satellite imagery and a technology that they use. It's like ground penetrating radar. So it's really fun, right? As you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader in innovation, you get these other people and friends that say, hey man, I got something that we might be able to help you with, or hey gosh, I heard about this other person that's doing this, and so just like this conversation now, there's a chance that our friendship and the fact that we're networking here and through YPO, that our team gets to your team, and you have a product that you didn't have, and we have a product that we didn't have to differentiate us even further. All right, so it can be fun, and so
good stuff,
because it's so exciting to actually change the industries we serve, not just compete in them, but actually change them and bring them to a different world, right?
That's what I think is really fun and invigorating. Yeah,
it's awesome, right? Okay, so Robbie, I'm sorry to cut you off, buddy, but I just had to go there because I'm excited about the new products we have, and I wanted a great mind and Raj to kind of know that what's going on too, because he'll have some down the road to be calling me and say, hey, Ray, I got somebody that might need that technology. How do we get to that, right? So.
No worries. I'll try to be speedy here, and I want to be conscious of your time today. So I like to do it chronologically, just the way we went through our conversation. So taking it back to the beginning.
Okay.
The first things first was the idea of listening to your market and your audience and staying ahead of the curve or with the curve in terms of innovation and in your strategy for the business. So I broke that down into 3 different elements for you guys in your business. And I prioritized talent as number 1 in relation to how you had mentioned that during the 2008 crisis, you actually shifted your model to focus on hiring the right talent during that time, as opposed to maybe being a little bit more reactive.
Yes.
Shifting your business model to innovate with the times, and then ultimately the technology that your company leverages. So I think you guys are doing a great job of that today, and I'm excited to see where that continues to go for the future. The second piece was more of a generalized statement, but I think it is important for a lot of either current or future leaders to be mindful of, is building a succession plan early and understanding what they want that vision to look like, and then baking in the right steps along the way. And I think that ultimately ties into my next point, which is that you guys have done a great job of empowering your team leaders through decentralized decision-making and execution. And I think if you lead with a centralized business model, it can slow down the rate of innovation across an entire business. So I think you guys are doing a great job of that. And my last one, Gary had taken a couple of them, but my last one is the survive then thrive. I think that's an incredible takeaway for a lot of the listeners, especially when you're going through a time like we are today. It's just unprecedented. And I think first things first is making sure that you're transparent as an organization, so that when you're working from home, at least you have a clear understanding of what the leaders at the business are thinking through on the day-to-day, and how that could actually translate into their life. And I think that just builds more trust and credibility with your employees back into the business, and ultimately helps you guys through retention. And that's a stated fact for you right now. and then ultimately provide that vision for the future. If the pandemic's going to cause you to shift a business model, let the team know that and see if there's any feedback from them, and ultimately carrying that forward. So thank you, Raj.
Hey, so I'll finish up with just a couple of quick things. Raj, the other thing I look at, and I from the outside looking in, I know you're not a braggadocious type of guy like I am. So you didn't talk about all the giving you guys do. I see, I see you guys step up and give back to the community a lot. I know that your teammates love that and your customers love that, but you don't do it. You do it for the reason that's best, and it's just to support the community that gives you so much. So we didn't get there. We didn't go there. Next time we talk to you, we'll talk about that more, because
sounds good.
I think it's so important for us to be like your company ESD, and think about the communities we serve and how we give back to them. And you guys do an awesome job of that.
Thank you.
Last thing I gotta say, my goal is always to get people that have lived this American dream and understand the blessings that we have in this free enterprise driven marketplace to do great things. And to hear your story, your father coming here, mom and dad coming here with $100, and your dad working hard to rise in an organization, and then take the risk to go on his own is cool. And then for you as a son to admire what he did through storytelling, and then build further on this American dream. That's the coolest. And I really respect that. And I love that part of who you are. So thanks for that, man. Thanks for being
Gary.
an inspiration to people like me and others. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
So
coming from you, that means a lot. I appreciate it.
It's awesome. And so, hey, that's about all. We want to burn too much of your time. You'll never want to talk to us again. You'll say, again, not a 2-hour conversation again. So
I hope you and your audience will get something out of this. So I appreciate it.
Oh man, absolutely, brother. So thanks for everything.
Right.
Really appreciate your time, and let's get together in the near future. All right.
Why don't you take me golfing? You have that golf course.
Yeah.
Oh, you make the date. Hey, Raj, make the date and bring out a couple of your teammates that I can introduce to Robbie and maybe Austin.
Great idea.
To see if there's some fit with stuff we're talking about. So
okay.
You do that anytime you want in the next few weeks. We'd love to see that. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right, brother.
Yeah.
Great talking.
That's the way to do it.
All
right, guys. Thanks, Robbie. Thanks, Gary.
Until next time on Ditch Digger CEO. See ya.